Thank you for tuning in to another edition of Friday Focus. I'm your host, Shane Jackson. Blair was unable to make it, and despite missing last week's start, I've been called up. Luckily for you guys, I'm joined with Stella Yang and Dan Harmsen, the Kansan football beat writers. Today we will preview West Virginia and talk about the matchups and even go over our score prediction. But first, like we do every week, let's talk about last week. Rather than talk about the game, which was a 23-0 loss to Texas, let's just talk about what happened afterwards, because that's what people care about. Zinger made a, just loud, bold statement firing Charlie Weis after that 23-0 loss. Just first of all, I want to get your guys' impressions after you got the news, just your initial reactions once you got the news.
I was a little surprised by the timing. I thought that the Duke game would be more of a fitting time to have the firing because Charlie Weis had so much expectations going to that Duke game, and you really thought that Kansas would have a good shot. They ended up getting blown out. Then the next week, you play Central Michigan, so you think that if Bowen, who's the interim now, if he had that chance to take over, maybe get a win, get some positive momentum going. So I thought the timing was a little weird, but yeah, I think it was a good move overall for the future of the program.
I was a little surprised at first, but I thought Weis was going to get fired eventually. I thought it was a little early, just 4 games in, but it kind of gives Clint Bowen a nice, 9 weeks to get his feet wet and be a nice long audition. And I think, honestly, we probably shouldn't say, bad things about Weis, but overall, I just think he wasn't the right fit for KU.
And clearly it was something that was going to happen eventually, like you said. But again, I was surprised by the timing of it. Now you're looking at it, Clint Bowen's going to get the job, and he has the gruesome Big 12 schedule that it's going to be hard to get a win. You look at the schedule, there's not really a winnable game that you can just mark down, whereas Central Michigan was that winnable game, and maybe you can get your feet wet with that first win for Bowen. So it is a little surprising at the timing because now this is really the heat of it. Just talk about Clint Bowen being named the interim head coach. Why is he the perfect man for the job?
Well, like you said, it's going to be a challenge. KU's staring down the barrel of a Big 12. I think the record of opponents the next 8 games is like 22-9. So it's going to be a steep challenge, but Bowen's never one to turn down a challenge. I mean, he's had 19 years of experience with KU, 3 as a player, had like 114 tackles in '93. So I think the players are going to respect his opinion. And I'm not saying that they didn't respect Charlie Weis's, but as being around the Jayhawk program for so long and seeing the ups and downs, the Orange Bowls, these past couple of years, so Bowen has a very, very solid understanding of KU football.
I agree. I think Bowen was the right choice because of the energy that he brings and the tradition that he knows about KU. I think that Weis always kind of, had a step back from the program, and I think Bowen, dwells right in and knows what KU football means to the university and what to the team. Yeah,
I really liked the move. I thought it was the obvious choice. You thought John might have a chance, but being as he's still relatively new, at least at this position, it was clearly Clint's job. Moving on, now we can finally discuss football after a few days where it was just hectic and off-the-field stuff. Talk about West Virginia. Dan, once again, you had the opportunity to talk to the opposing team's beat writer. Just what can you tell the fans about West Virginia?
Yeah, I did get to talk to the beat writer from West Virginia Illustrated, and tell you what, this West Virginia team could be a top 10 caliber team. They played Alabama in the first game of the year, and you guys saw it. I mean, they took them to the wire. And then they had the bye week last week, but the week before they played Oklahoma, and if it wasn't for that effort from their running back, P-line, that game, West Virginia should have won that game. So this West Virginia team is night and day was the way that he phrased it, night and day from last year when KU took them down in Lawrence, and that team was so injury, there were injuries across the board, and the psyche of the team was just not what it is now. They've got Kevin White, who's he's second in the country in receiving yards, but this guy is going to provide a challenge because KU likes to go one-on-one on the outside, and they're going to go deep. Clinton Trickett, their quarterback, he's completed almost 40% of his passes down the field. So you look at his numbers and you think maybe he's throwing some dink and dunks, but really he's actually stretching the field, which is going to be tough.
And not that they need it, but as you mentioned, they had the bye week, so now they've had 2 weeks to prepare for Kansas. Whereas Kansas is still
Texas,
whereas Kansas is still dealing with the head coaching shift, so that is going to make it tough this week. Stella, what is one player on this West Virginia team that the fans should watch out for?
Well, Dan already mentioned him, and I think that would be senior wide receiver Kevin White, and I think the Jayhawks really have to be scared of him. Right now, he's leading the Big 12 with 158.2 receiving yards a game. The lowest number of receptions in a game that he has gotten this year is 9. And he has not had a game where he has had less than 100 yards receiving. And I think when Clint Trickett throws the ball near him, he will go get it.
But as we saw against Duke, when it's strength versus strength, KU did fairly well. Their secondary versus the Duke receiving core. So in that matchup, if you're going against a really good receiver, I still like Kansas's odds, at least going forward. Defense is not the problem. As we know, it's the offense. So moving on to Kansas, talking about their offensive issues, a lot of blame is going to be put on Kozart with his 4-interception game against Texas. Dan, I'm going to ask you, is it fair to put this all on Kozart?
To put it all on Kozart, that might be a bit of a stretch, but a lot of it should be on Kozart. And Bowen, during his press conference, was the first to say it. Like, the quarterback position, right or wrong, like he said, is going to have to take a lot of the blame. And he's saying, Kozart, you don't have to make the Heisman caliber plays, but you got to make the ones that the defense gives you. And too many overthrows. He looks a little scared of contact. I don't know if you guys are seeing that too, but I think he's a little tentative still, and you thought that the experience that he got last year, he might have been able to grow out of it, but that hasn't been the case so far, and the KU really needs him to play well.
It really has been surprising because I was really high on Kozart going into the season. Something I did like last week that we hadn't really talked about is that they had more designed runs for Kozart, and they seem to be making that an effort. I don't know if that's going to continue with Bowen being named as head coach now, but I really like Kozart using his legs because that's really why he's out there. Stella, moving on, with the switch to the head coach, there's going to be differences between the head coach. One of them, it's already been made certain, is the offensive coordinator, John Reagan, is going to get moved up to the press box. He was usually on the sideline during the games. Talk about how that may impact the offense.
Well, I think that at the very least, it's not going to make anything worse, Shane. I think that if Reagan is up in the press box, he'll have a better view of the offense. And, we've had some maybe questionable calls that we've seen, and so hopefully that'll let Reagan see the field better and maybe get away from the distraction of the field.
Certainly, yeah, it can't hurt. And, he's going to be able to see stuff from upstairs, from the bird's eye view where you can see those small things that you may not necessarily see on the field. Like Charlie Weiss would even admit after the games and press conferences, he'd have to watch the film because he doesn't really necessarily remember what happened in that play because you're still focused in on one thing that you may not see a wide receiver miss the block or a secondary move over the right way. So certainly that will help in that aspect. But at the same time, now you don't have a voice on the sideline on your offensive end talking to the offensive line. So that really concerns me going forward.
You look at the game last week in Texas, they could take the ball, their opening possession, they're going for it on 4th down. And, that right off the bat is kind of an insult to Kansas. They took it personally and stopped them. Ben Heaney made a big tackle. KU seemed to have all the momentum. They're driving down into Texas territory. And Montel Kozart, he doesn't really read the defensive end. I think it was Cedric Reed. He backs up, bats the ball down. But those are the types of things, those small things that can really change the complexion of the game. So we like to see some steps this week from Kozart in terms of just those little plays that can really turn things.
If there's going to be a team he can do it against, it has to be a team that he beat last year with West Virginia. That's got to add some motivation. Now to put you guys on the spot, score prediction: does Kansas repeat? Do they get another win against West Virginia?
I don't think they do. No, Dana Holgorsen is about as fired up as you can get for a Kansas football game. What was it he said the other day? Watching the game last year's game made me want to puke.
Yep.
But Bowen, tongue-in-cheek was like, well, I heard Holgorsen wasn't feeling so well, and I really hope that he's doing better for next Saturday. I really hope. So, a little back and forth banter. Like, Clint Bowen is a fiery guy. I expect him to put a lot of energy on this Kansas football team. They seemed really pumped up that he was promoted because nobody deserves it more than Clint. That's just how I feel. But yeah, I think West Virginia is just going to be too much. That passing attack, KU's offense is just not going to be able to match scores, even if the defense plays well, which I think they might. So I'm going to go with West Virginia 35, Kansas 13. But I think we'll see some signs. Kansas has been able to run the ball pretty well, so got to get going on the ground first before things can turn.
I think my favorite part of that Bowen statement was that he said it with a straight face, and then he just went on with the rest of the press conference like he didn't make a joke or anything. But I'm with you, Dan. I think that even though you know, Kansas is going to be fired up. I think West Virginia wins this one 38-10 because the West Virginia offense is just so dominant, and they're fired up. They want revenge. You know, they went against two of the best teams in the country, and they were this close, and I think they can beat Kansas at home.
Yeah, this is one of those games that could go either way because you got a new coach in there. This is a team that you beat last year. It seems like, you know, the players are really going to get, you know, fired up, get ready to go. But at the same time, West Virginia, as you mentioned, has been watching that tape. They don't want to repeat what they did last year. So I think they're just going to be just as fired up. And if they are, that's a problem because they're easily more talented than Kansas. So I'm going to say Kansas loses as well. 34-6. I think the offense continues to struggle. But I do like this defense. And so that point only, I think this could be a lot closer game than people expect.
I think Clint Bowen's he's gonna steal a game at some point this year. What was it he said the other day? My wife, I went out on an ice cream date with her, you know, on 23rd Street, and she looked me in the eye. Was like, "Hey, what do you really want to do with your life?" And he wanted to coach Kansas football, and like, this guy bleeds crimson and blue. So I would not be surprised if the team, you know, echoes his passion on the football field.
Thank you for watching another edition of Friday Focus. Make sure to watch the Kansas Jayhawks take on West Virginia at 3 p.m. for Clint Bowen's debut. For Dan Harmson, Stella Yang, I'm Shane Jackson. Enjoy your weekend and rock chalk.